The attack came without warning. Earth's outermost colony, New Terra, was a thriving world filled with farmers, scientists, and families. It was far from the core of human civilization, far from any real military presence. It had no warships, no defenses, and no reason to expect an invasion. But the Sci-Fi Empire did not care. They came in the dead of night, their massive warships casting shadows over the land. Their weapons burned through the colony's defenses within minutes. Homes were destroyed, communication towers fell, and screams filled the air as alien soldiers marched through the streets. The invasion of New Terra had begun. The arrival of the Sci-Fi. General Korak of the Sci-Fi Empire stood on the bridge of his warship, looking down at the burning colony below. "These humans are weak," he growled, his voice filled with disgust. Beside him, his second-in-command, Commander Ratha, nodded in agreement. They did not even try to resist. Conquering their kind will be effortless. Korak smirked. Good. The Emperor wants their resources, not a war. If they surrender quickly, we will spare them. If not, his sharp claws tightened into a fist. We will burn every world they own. Below, Sci-Fi troops stormed the colony, rounding up survivors. The aliens stood taller than any human, their bodies covered in thick armor, their reptilian faces void of emotion. They were born for war. They had conquered dozens of species before, and in their minds, humanity would be no different. The resistance begins. Captain Elias Grant was one of the few soldiers stationed on New Terra. He had seen the Sci-Fi attack firsthand. He had watched as his home was reduced to rubble, as innocent people were dragged from their houses. He had lost friends, comrades, and now he was hiding in the ruins, gripping his rifle tightly. "They think we are weak," he muttered. His jaw clenched. "They think we will kneel." A few other survivors were with him, engineers, workers, even a few farmers. They had no real weapons, no real training, but they had something the Sci-Fi didn't expect. Determination. Elias turned to them. "If we don't fight, we die. If we don't resist, they will do this to every colony, every world. So we have to show them that humans do not break." The others nodded. Their fear was still there, but something stronger was growing inside them. Something dangerous, something the Sci-Fi had not planned for, a deadly ambush. That night, as Sci-Fi patrols moved through the ruins, Elias and his small group struck from the shadows. They had no advanced weapons, no powerful armor, but they had strategy, speed, and the element of surprise. Using makeshift explosives, they trapped one of the Sci-Fi convoys. As the massive alien soldiers moved through a narrow alley, the humans detonated the charges, bringing the walls crashing down on top of them. Then, before the Sci-Fi could react, Elias and his team opened fire. The aliens were caught off guard. They had believed the battle was over. They had thought humanity was already defeated. But now, for the first time, they felt fear. The message to Earth. Miles away, the Sci-Fi commanders received word of the attack. General Korak slammed his fist against the control panel. "What do you mean we lost a patrol?" he roared. "The humans should be broken." Commander Ratha's face was tense. "It appears they are resisting." Korak's eyes narrowed. He had underestimated them. But this would not happen again. "Find them," he ordered. "Burn every hiding place, and when you do, make an example out of them." The war has just begun. As the Sci-Fi forces searched the ruins, Elias and his fighters moved quickly, preparing for the next attack. They knew they couldn't hold New Terra forever. But that wasn't the plan. They just needed to buy time. Elias turned to a young engineer, Myelin, who was working on a hacked communications array. "Did you get the message out?" Maya nodded, sweat dripping from her forehead. "Yes, the signal has been sent." "Good," Elias said. He took a deep breath. The Sci-Fi thought they had already won. But now, all of humanity would know the truth. The war had just begun, and the Sci-Fi were about to learn. Humans never kneel. The flames of war had been lit. The Sci-Fi Empire believed their conquest of New Terra was complete. They had expected humanity to surrender, to accept their rule without a fight. But the ambush led by Captain Elias Grant had proven them wrong. Now, the Zephyr were hunting the resistance, and Elias knew they were running out of time. A desperate plan. Deep within the ruins of a collapsed building, Elias and his team gathered around a holomap. The Zephyr had set up a central command post in the colony's capital building. That was where their main communications hub was located. If we can get inside, Elias said, pointing to the structure, we can send a stronger distress signal to Earth. Right now, we don't even know if our first message made it. Maya Lin, the team's engineer, frowned. The problem isn't just getting inside, it's getting out. The Zephyr will hunt us down the moment we hit that tower, said Dante Ortega, a former security officer. Elias nodded. That's why we make sure they're too distracted to stop us. He turned to the group, his voice steady. We hit them hard. We show them humanity doesn't bow. And then, we make sure Earth hears our call. The plan was set. Now they just needed to survive long enough to pull it off. The Zephyr's hunt. Meanwhile, General Korak was furious. His forces had swept the ruins of New Terra, but the humans were elusive. They struck from the shadows, attacking patrols, sabotaging supply routes. They are vermin, hiding in the dirt. Korak growled, his claws digging into the armrest of his throne. Commander Ritha stood before him, her expression tense. This is different from any species we've conquered before, the humans. Adapt. Korak's red eyes flashed with anger. Then we will burn them out. His fist slammed down on the console, activating a planet-wide broadcast. This is General Korak of the Sci-Fi Empire. To the humans of New Terra, your resistance is pointless. Surrender now, and we will grant you mercy. A pause. Then his voice darkened. But if you continue to resist, we will destroy everything you love. Elias and his team listened from their hidden bunker. He clenched his fists. Let them come, he muttered, because by the time the Zephyr realized their mistake, it would be too late. The attack begins. Night fell over the colony. Elias and his fighters moved like shadows, sneaking through the ruins. The Zephyr forces were stationed all around the command center, their weapons ready, their scanners searching for human survivors. But Elias had planned for this. Using stolen Zephyr explosives, the team rigged abandoned vehicles and buildings around the city. The moment the first explosion detonated, the Zephyr panicked. A second blast ripped through the streets, followed by a third. In the chaos, Elias and his strike team rushed toward the command center. The real battle had begun. Breaking into the command center, the entrance was heavily guarded, but Elias had something the Zephyr didn't: desperation. They hit hard and fast, overwhelming the guards with stolen plasma rifles. Dante took out the security systems, while Maya sprinted toward the main console. I'm in, she yelled, boosting the distress signal now. Elias covered her, blasting the Zephyr soldier out of the doorway. Come on, Maya muttered as she worked. Then, success. A powerful distress signal shot through space, a signal meant for Earth's military forces, but also a signal the Zephyr wouldn't ignore. The wrath of the Zephyr. Alarms blared across the command center. General Korak's face appeared on the monitors, his eyes burning with rage. You think this changes anything, human? He snarled. Elias smirked, gripping his rifle. Yeah, he said. I think it does. Korak's growl echoed through the room. You've sealed your fate. No more mercy. You will all burn. The Zephyr reinforcements were coming. The humans were outnumbered. And yet, Elias felt something he hadn't felt since the invasion began. Hope. Because now, Earth knew the truth. And soon, the Zephyr would learn the most important lesson of all. Humans never back down. The distress signal had been sent. Now, all Elias and his team could do was hold the line, and pray that Earth received their call for help. But as the Zephyr mobilized their forces, preparing to crush the last remnants of resistance, one question remained unanswered. Would help arrive in time? Or would humanity's defiance end on New Terra? The Zephyrs' retaliation. General Korak's fury shook the command center. "These humans dare defy us," he roared, his claws digging into the metal console. Commander Ritha stood beside him, her expression grim. "They have sent a signal to their homeworld. If their fleet arrives." Korak slammed his fist on the control panel. "We will finish this before that happens." He turned to his officers. "Deploy all remaining troops. Burn their hiding places. Leave nothing standing." His eyes gleamed with cruel satisfaction. "This rebellion ends tonight. The final stand." Elias and his team had barely escaped the command center before Zephyr reinforcements arrived. Now, they were holed up in an old industrial complex, their stolen weapons running low on ammo. Maya Lin checked the transmission logs. The signal went out, but even at maximum boost, it could take hours before Earth responds. Dante Ortega scowled. "We don't have hours." Outside, the thunder of Zephyr war machines shook the ground. Elias stood at the entrance, gripping his rifle. He could see hundreds of Zephyr soldiers moving through the ruins, surrounding them. They were coming, and they weren't planning to take prisoners. He turned to his team. "This is it," he said. His voice was calm. "We hold them off as long as we can. We make them bleed for every step they take." The others nodded, their fear replaced by determination. They had nothing left to lose, and that made them dangerous. A desperate battle. The Zephyr attack began with a hail of plasma fire. Walls shattered, explosions ripped through the building, and the air filled with the screams of battle. Elias and his fighters fought like demons, striking from the shadows, setting traps, using every ounce of strategy they had left. For every human that fell, 3 Zephyr followed. But it wasn't enough. Their numbers were too great. Elias saw Dante take a plasma blast to the chest, falling with a grunt. Another fighter was dragged away, kicking and screaming. The end was near. And then, the sky burned. Earth answers the call. A massive shockwave tore through the battlefield. Elias stumbled, looking up. And what he saw made his heart stop. Warships. Human warships. Earth had heard their call. And now, they had come to answer. The tide turns. The Zephyr looked up in shock as human warships descended from the sky, their cannons blazing. Explosions rained down, tearing through Zephyr forces. Their war machines were shredded, their soldiers scattered in panic. The human fleet had arrived in force, and they had brought hell with them. Elias and his remaining fighters watched in awe as drop pods slammed into the ground, releasing squads of heavily armed human marines. At the front of the charge was Commander Alex Carter, a veteran of Earth's elite strike forces. He locked eyes with Elias and grinned. "Need a hand?" Elias let out a breath. "You took your time." Carter chuckled. "We like to make an entrance." Then he raised his rifle. "All right, people, let's show these aliens what happens when you mess with humanity." The Marines charged forward, their battle cries shaking the ground. And the Zephyr, for the first time in their history, turned and ran. The war is far from over. As the battle raged on, General Korak watched from his flagship, his face pale with shock. "They came," he whispered. Humanity had answered the call. And now, the real war was about to begin. With a growl, he turned to his officers. "This is not over," he snarled. "We will crush them. We will burn their worlds." But deep down, he felt something he had never felt before. Doubt. Because humanity had just proven something terrifying. They would never stop fighting. They would never kneel. And if the Zephyr weren't careful, they might just lose. The battle for New Terra had taken a dramatic turn. Humanity's warships had descended from the heavens, delivering fire and fury upon the Zephyr invaders. The resistance fighters, once on the brink of extinction, now stood alongside Earth's elite soldiers. But victory was still far from certain. The Zephyr were not just an invading force. They were an empire, and empires did not accept defeat. The Zephyr's counterattack. General Korak stood aboard his warship, his claws tapping against the metal railing. His eyes burned as he watched human warships lay waste to his ground forces. The Zephyr had underestimated these humans. That mistake would not happen again. He turned to Commander Ritha, his voice like steel. "Summon the Imperial fleet." Ritha hesitated. "The High Command will not be pleased." Korak snarled. "I do not care about their pleasure. I care about victory. These humans have defied us long enough. Now we crush them." Ritha nodded, activating the transmission console. A signal pulsed into the void. And across the stars, the Zephyr prepared for war. Holding the line. Back on the ground, Elias Grant and Commander Alex Carter stood atop a ruined building, surveying the battlefield. The Zephyr ground forces were in retreat, their war machines destroyed, their command center in ruins. Maya Lin adjusted her tactical visor, scanning the horizon. Zephyr forces are pulling back, but it doesn't feel like a surrender. Elias felt it too. Something was wrong. Then the alarms blared. A new fleet had just entered the system, and it was massive. Hundreds of Zephyr warships emerged from hyperspace, their black hulls blotting out the stars. The ground trembled as shock troops began landing in waves, their sheer numbers overwhelming. Carter clenched his jaw. "Looks like they brought the cavalry." Elias tightened his grip on his rifle. "Then we fight. Again. Because giving up wasn't an option." The battle for the skies. Above Nuterra, human warships engaged the Zephyr fleet in brutal combat. Lasers and plasma fire lit up the void, ships exploding in fiery bursts as the two forces clashed. Captain Rebecca Holloway, commander of the human flagship Vanguard, barked orders from the bridge. "Redirect power to shields. Keep those destroyers off our flanks." Her tactical officers swore. "We're outnumbered 4-1. We won't last long." Holloway's gaze hardened. "Then we make every shot count." The human resistance falls back. On the ground, the situation was even worse. The Zephyr's reinforcements were endless, their heavy war machines crushing everything in their path. Human resistance fighters were forced into retreat, falling back toward the military bunker at the heart of the city. Carter fired his plasma rifle, taking down 2 Zephyr soldiers before ducking behind cover. "We can't hold this position forever." Elias gritted his teeth, watching his people fall one by one. He activated his comm. "Holloway, if you've got a miracle, now's the time." Holloway's voice came through the radio, tense but controlled. "We're working on it. Just hold the line." Elias exhaled. They just had to hold on a little longer. But as he turned toward the battlefield, he saw something that made his blood run cold. A Zephyr dreadnought was descending, and it was preparing to wipe them out. The doomsday weapon. General Korak watched from his command ship as the planetary siege dreadnought lowered into position. Its massive energy cannon hummed, preparing to fire a planetary cleansing beam. One shot, and everything on the surface would be vaporized. Korak leaned forward, savoring the moment. "This is the price of defiance," he murmured. Commander Ritha hesitated. "If we fire this weapon, we risk losing the colony's resources." Korak's eyes blazed. "I do not care about resources. I care about erasing this human disease." Ritha fell silent. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. The last gamble. Elias stared at the colossal dreadnought, realizing exactly what was about to happen. "They're going to wipe out the entire colony," Maya whispered. Elias clenched his fists. "Not today." He activated his comm again. "Holloway, that cannon is charging. We need to take it out now." Holloway's voice came back instantly. "I see it. We're moving in." From above, the Vanguard and its fleet broke through the Zephyr's defensive line, pushing toward the dreadnought. The Zephyr tried to block them, but they were too late. The Vanguard's main railgun charge. And then, boom! A massive shockwave tore through the sky as the dreadnought exploded, its fiery wreckage crashing into the battlefield below. Elias and his team stared in disbelief. They had survived. For now. Korak's fury. Aboard his flagship, General Korak watched his dreadnought burn, his claws trembling with rage. "These humans," he whispered, "they refuse to die." Commander Rytha's voice was quiet. "Sir, we may need to reconsider our approach." Korak's eyes flashed. "No, we will not retreat." His voice turned to a snarl. "We will burn their homeworld." He turned toward his communications officer. "Prepare the fleet for a direct assault on Earth. If humanity refused to surrender, then he would wipe them from existence." The destruction of the Zephyr dreadnought had given humanity a brief victory, but the war was far from over. General Korak, humiliated and enraged, had given a new order. Earth must fall. The Zephyr fleet, numbering in the thousands, now turned toward the cradle of humanity, prepared to wipe it from the stars. On Earth, the alarms rang. The final battle was about to begin. The warning. Deep beneath the city of New London, in the hidden War Command bunker, Grand Admiral Jonathan Reyes stared at the holographic display. Red dots, Zephyr warships, were moving toward Earth at incredible speed. A cold chill ran down his spine. "How long until they reach us?" he asked. A technician answered, voice shaky. "Less than 72 hours." The war had come to humanity's doorstep. Reyes turned to his officers. "We must prepare." The last defense fleet, Earth's home fleet, was all that stood between humanity and annihilation. Though outnumbered, these were Earth's most advanced warships, designed for one purpose: survival. The Titan-class battleships hovered in orbit, their cannons locked onto the incoming threat. The dreadnought Vanguard, led by Captain Rebecca Holloway, had rushed back from New Terra, its hull scarred from battle but still ready to fight. Commander Alex Carter and Elias Grant had also returned, bringing with them the survivors of New Terra's resistance. They would not run. They would fight. The invasion begins. When the Zephyr fleet arrived, it was like a storm swallowing the stars. Their warships filled Earth's orbit, their planetary siege cannons charging for an apocalyptic bombardment. On the Zephyr command ship, General Korak sneered, "This is where humanity dies." But before the Zephyr could fire, Earth struck first. The home fleet launched everything they had, sending railgun slugs, missiles, and plasma fire straight into the Zephyr armada. Explosions filled space as Zephyr ships shattered, their hulls torn apart by the sheer power of human weaponry. Earth was not defenseless. The battle for humanity's future had begun. Fighting on the ground. While the space battle raged, Zephyr dropships broke through and began landing on Earth. Cities became war zones, with human soldiers and civilians fighting for their lives. Elias and Carter led their troops in the streets of New London, battling against Zephyr war machines. A massive Walker mech stomped forward, its cannons firing. Carter ducked behind cover, shouting, "We need air support." Above, human fighter jets swooped in, unleashing Hellfire missiles that tore the Zephyr forces apart. But for every enemy destroyed, more Zephyr arrived. Elias gritted his teeth. "This isn't just a battle. This is a war for survival." Earth's superweapon. As the battle raged, Admiral Reyes watched the chaos from the command bunker. He knew the truth. If Earth fought this war fairly, humanity would lose. But Earth had one last weapon. A secret project. Project Ragnarok. A weapon so powerful, it had been hidden for decades. Reyes turned to his science officer. "Is the Ragnarok cannon ready?" The officer hesitated. "Yes, but if we fire it, we risk destroying our own ships." Reyes narrowed his eyes. "Then we wait for the right moment." Because when Earth finally fired back, It would end the war in one shot. Korak's final assault. On the Sci-Fi flagship, General Korak watched as his forces struggled against the human defenders. He snarled, slamming his fist against the console. These humans are more stubborn than I thought. Commander Ritha turned to him. We should retreat. Regroup. Korak's eyes blazed with fury. No, I will not retreat. I will end this. He turned toward the weapons officer. Prepare the doomsday bomb. Ritha's eyes widened. Sir, that bomb will wipe out all life on Earth, including our own troops. Korak sneered. Then they will die for the Empire. A countdown began. In 5 minutes, Earth would be destroyed. The last hope. Elias and Carter, still fighting on the ground, saw the Sci-Fi flagship in the sky. Then they got the transmission. Ray's voice was urgent. The Zifar are deploying a doomsday bomb. If it detonates, Earth is gone. Elias gritted his teeth. There was only one option. Get me a dropship, he said. Carter stared at him. You're not seriously thinking. I'm going up there, Elias said. And I'm stopping that bomb. Carter hesitated, then nodded. I'm coming with you. They boarded a stealth dropship and blasted off into space, headed straight for the heart of the Sci-Fi flagship. They had 5 minutes. Either they stopped the bomb, or Earth was doomed. The battle for Earth had reached its breaking point. Sci-Fi warships rained fire from orbit, their doomsday bomb counting down to detonation. On the ground, humanity fought with everything they had. Soldiers, civilians, anyone who could hold a weapon. And in the skies, Elias Grant and Alex Carter were racing against time, piloting a stolen Sci-Fi dropship toward the heart of the enemy fleet. They had one mission: stop the bomb, or Earth would die. The infiltration. Inside the stolen Sci-Fi dropship, Elias tightened his grip on his weapon. 2 minutes until detonation, Carter said, his voice tense. The Sci-Fi flagship loomed ahead, a monstrous fortress in space. This is a suicide mission, Carter muttered. Elias smirked. Then let's make it count. The ship's automated defenses scanned them. For a terrifying second, it seemed like they would be blasted out of the sky. But then the doors opened. Their stolen ship had fooled the system. They were inside. The bomb room. The moment they stepped onto the flagship, alarms blared. Sci-Fi warriors rushed forward, weapons raised. Elias and Carter opened fire, blasting through the enemy ranks. They had no time for a long fight. They sprinted toward the control room, where the doomsday bomb was primed to detonate. When they got there, they froze. General Korak was waiting for them. He stood in front of the bomb's control panel, a cruel smile on his face. You really think you can stop this? He sneered. The timer read 60 seconds. Carter raised his rifle. We're not here to think. We're here to end you. The duel. Korak charge. The general was a brutal warrior, towering over both humans, his blades slicing through the air. Elias dodged just in time as Korak's sword slammed into the metal floor, sparks flying. Carter fired, but Korak was too fast, knocking the weapon out of his hands. Elias grabbed a fallen Sci-Fi blade and blocked Korak's strike, their weapons clashing. Every second wasted was a second closer to Earth's destruction. The timer hit 30 seconds. Elias gritted his teeth. There was no more time. He feinted left, then drove his blade into Korak's chest. The general's eyes widened in shock. You, humans, he gasped. Then he collapsed, dead. Stopping the bomb. Carter rushed to the controls. 15 seconds left. Elias pushed Korak's body aside and scanned the console. Sci-Fi technology was alien, complex. But then he saw it. A failsafe key still clutched in Korak's hand. Elias grabbed it and slammed it into the control panel. The countdown froze at 3 seconds. Silence. Then, the bomb's core deactivated. They had won. The final escape. But the flagship was still falling apart. Earth's home fleet had broken through the Cypher lines, and now they were bombarding the enemy flagship. Elias grabbed Carter's arm. Time to go. They ran back to their dropship, dodging explosions, bodies, and flames. The moment they launched, the Cypher flagship exploded behind them, taking the Cypher Empire's greatest weapon with it. Earth rises. The destruction of the flagship sent shockwaves through the Cypher fleet. Without Korak, without the doomsday bomb, the invasion collapsed. Cypher warships retreated, their once mighty armada broken and defeated. On Earth, cheers erupted. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, humanity had won. Elias and Carter's dropship landed, and the moment they stepped out, thousands of humans greeted them with applause. Admiral Rice approached, nodding in respect. "You saved us all." Elias smirked. "That's what humans do." And as the sun rose over Earth, it was humanity's turn to stand tall. The war had changed. For years, the Zephyr had dominated the galaxy, ruling with fear and destruction. But now, their invasion of Earth had failed. Their greatest general, Korak, was dead. Their doomsday bomb was destroyed. And for the first time in history, humanity stood victorious. But Elias Grant, Alex Carter, and the rest of Earth's defenders knew one thing: the Cypher would return. Unless humanity struck first, the counterattack begins. On board the dreadnought Vanguard, Earth's greatest warship, Admiral Rice stood before a holographic map of the Cypher Empire. The time for defense was over. Now, humanity was going to take the fight to them. Rice turned to Elias and Carter. "We have one chance to end this war." They all knew what he meant. If they wanted peace, they had to cripple the Cypher Empire at its heart. The target: Cypher Prime, their homeworld. The battle for Cypher Prime. The human fleet, battered but unbroken, jumped into enemy space. Cypher Prime was a fortress world, protected by an armada that had never been breached. But the Cypher had made one fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity. The battle began with Earth's most advanced warships launching a surprise attack, tearing through enemy lines. The Zephyr were scattered, their leadership in chaos after Korak's death. Captain Rebecca Holloway led squadrons of fighters, weaving through enemy ships and shattering their defenses. Meanwhile, Elias and Carter led a strike team onto the planet's surface. Their mission: end the war. The fall of the Cypher Council. Deep within the Cypher war chamber, the remaining alien warlords gathered in panic. They had ruled the galaxy for centuries. Yet now, they were losing to humans. A guard rushed in, his face filled with fear. "My lords, the humans are here." The doors burst open, and Elias, Carter, and their strike team stormed in. The Cypher warlords tried to flee, but there was nowhere left to run. Elias raised his weapon. "This war ends today." One of the Cypher, a terrified diplomat, fell to his knees. "We surrender." Silence filled the chamber. For the first time, the Zephyr begged for mercy, and humanity had won the war. A new era begins. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. The Cypher Empire had fallen. The species that once laughed at humanity had now been defeated by them. On Earth, celebrations erupted. For the first time, humanity was not just surviving. They were ruling their own destiny. Admiral Reyes, standing on the bridge of the Vanguard, looked out into the stars. The galaxy will never be the same again. Elias and Carter stood beside him. Carter smirked. "So what now?" Elias grinned. "Now, we see how far humans can go." Because this was not the end of humanity's story. It was just the beginning. The war was over. The mighty Cypher Empire, rulers of the galaxy for centuries, had fallen. Once, they saw humanity as weak, a species to be conquered. Now, they saw the truth. Humans were not prey. Humans were not fragile. They were survivors. They were warriors. They were victorious. And the galaxy would never forget it. Rebuilding Earth. On Earth, the skies were clear again. The scars of war remained, burned cities, broken monuments, but humanity was stronger than ever. People worked together to rebuild, to restore their home. The world had been on the brink of destruction. Now it was entering a new era, one where no species would dare threaten humanity again. Elias Grant stood on the ruins of an old command center, watching as engineers repaired ships and rebuilt civilization. Carter stepped beside him. "You think the galaxy will leave us alone now?" he asked. Elias smirked. "Not a chance." Carter laughed. "Then I guess we better be ready." Because humanity was no longer just defending itself. It was preparing for whatever came next. The galactic shift. The fall of the Zephyr had sent shockwaves across the stars. Other alien empires watched in fear. The unstoppable Zephyr had been defeated by humans. Some species wanted war, seeing humanity as a threat. Others saw an opportunity. Alliances, trade, cooperation. For the first time in history, humanity was not alone. But this time, it was on their terms. And they would never be underestimated again. A message to the stars. On the newly restored Earth Command Station, Admiral Rice stood before a galactic broadcast. Billions of beings across the universe watched. She looked into the camera and spoke clearly, fearlessly. "To those who see us as enemies, we are ready. To those who seek peace, we welcome you. And to those who think humanity will ever kneel again, try us." The message was clear. Humanity had arrived, and they were here to stay. The future awaits. As the human fleet expanded, new ships were built. New colonies were founded. Explorers set their eyes on uncharted worlds. And warriors stood ready, watching the stars. Because out there, in the darkness, a new enemy was waiting. A new war was coming. But humanity had already proven one thing. No matter the odds, humanity would never break. Elias Grant, Carter, and the warriors of Earth stood on the bridge of a new warship, one bigger, faster, and stronger than anything before. Carter smirked. "Where to next?" Elias smiled. "Anywhere we damn well want." Because this was just the beginning.